Good day, everybody. I am Abdi Lajavardi, your host, and welcome to another segment of Education for a Better World. Today, I have one of my dear colleagues and a great guest for this program, Dr. Michelle Matthew. We are delighted to have you with us, Michelle, and welcome. Welcome to Education for a Better World.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Michelle, why don't you start telling us about you? And let's start there. Tell us about, both personal and professional. I'm so excited for people to get to know you. So.
Okay. All right. Well, Dr. Abby, before I get started, I just want to just take a brief moment. I just don't feel comfortable without just sending my condolences to the families in Texas. I am a mother and I am a educator. And during these times, it is just very heartfelt having to think about what those families are going to. So I just wanted to mention that before we got started today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you very much. And my best regards and wishes for the families as well. Thank you for being so wonderful and so thoughtful. So,
thank you. Well, to talk about myself a little bit, I started out in teaching at an early age. I fell in love with teaching from my father. My father was a principal. He was an assistant superintendent of a small district in South Georgia. And I remember as a child, I used to walk the hallways with him on Saturdays because he would go to the school and he would go inside the classrooms to look at the different teachers' environments. And at that time, I really didn't know what he was doing because I was so young. But I believe that's when I first fell in love with education. I've had a great journey. I worked in education for 30 years as a teacher, an assistant principal, assistant superintendent, working on the college level, teaching classes on site and online. So my love for education started with wanting to make sure that students are able to grow and to learn and to be successful. And throughout that period of time, I think one of my best journeys was as an elementary principal, because when you're elementary principal, you're starting from pre-K most of the times to 5th grade. And I've had students that started out in pre-K and now they're graduating from universities. And it's just mind-boggling because they find me. I don't know how they find me, but they find me and they just want to say, we will always remember that you were my elementary principal. So that has been a joy in my life to work with kids from pre-K through all the way 16 level so far on my journey.
Well, thank you very much. And I personally believe, that education is really a gateway to better life. And the whole show is based on education for a better world. But when you think about education, I think early education is so fundamental on the whole journey. So having environment where the kids get to not only learn, but to keep that enjoyment in learning, is extremely important. And you being an individual that, focused and really not only taught, but, worked as a principal in that environment, how do you do that? I mean, how could teachers in a sense, be able to keep that love of learning in their classroom and make that, part of, what people learn to carry on the rest of their life.
Right, absolutely. So in the elementary, you always have to have a mindset that you're working with the children, their parents. There may be also friends of the family. And it's very important for teachers to first show a very nurturing heart, showing a compassion for students, and also having the mindset of being in a teaching mode for the children and the parents. Because it's so important for parents to understand what their children are learning in school. So what I used to tell my teachers was make sure that you are engaging the students And when you're engaging the students, you have to keep the parents in mind, because the parents, you want the support and you want to be able to give the parents some just type of ideas and recommendations on what they can do, because you're working with the child all the way around. One of the most important things I just talk with teachers about is that parents really start with from conception to pre-K, and then you have pre-K to first grade, and then you have another jump from first grade to third and fifth. So there's different levels. But we all should remember that learning starts from conception. When I have meetings with the parents, I talk about when children are, before they are born, about reading to children while they're still in the womb. I talk with them about the conversations, what it means to have conversations with children, even before they're born. I truly believe this is the beginning for our teachers. Then the teachers are able just to really add on to what the parents have already started. So I think being engaged with the family is so important. It's hard just to teach a student and then not have the parents or the guardian. You need everybody or whoever's a part of the village to be a part of that child's learning. And I think that makes it so much easier for the teacher.
Well said. And I couldn't agree more, because I've had, as you know, a little bit of experience in K through 12 as well. And I know how important it is that, especially in early childhood, we look at, everyone that is involved with the students at the center, and making sure they're well supported and everybody is on the same page. Now, a follow-up question to that: in the last couple of years with this pandemic, but if you look at it in the last, I don't know, 10, 15 years, with the explosion of knowledge and changes in technology and what you have, it has made it somewhat challenging on everybody, but especially educators, teachers. What are some of the things that teachers should be doing or can do in really taking advantage of all the tools that today is in their hand, that wasn't, maybe 20 years ago or so, or 10 years ago or so, and then how to overcome some of the challenges that they have today that we didn't have 10, 20 years ago, right?
Right. Yeah, because 20, 30 years ago, you had a classroom and you had children that were sitting in order by their last names, or sitting in different small groups. So it's totally different now. Now we're talking about Zoom, micro teams, and you have teachers that having to work with kids from virtually from their home. So things have changed. And my personal opinion about that part is that you really have to be ready to accept change, because it's here. And as we're moving forward in education, it won't ever be the same again. Giving you a quick example, it used to be, oh, we have a snow day. Well, it doesn't matter if you have a snow day now, for the most part, and there's always exceptions to the rule. But at the end of the day, you're still able to have remote learning, even on a snow day. Now, kids don't want to hear that, but that's where we are today. So some of the struggles that the teachers may be having is that all students may not have technology in their homes at this time. We're still in the age of where technology can be challenging for families to have what they need, for students to be able to acquire the learning that they need from virtual learning. Teachers are having to work with students through virtual learning, giving the example of assignments and having to monitor students while they're working. That's a challenge, because you can see their face, but you have to find ways of keeping those students engaged while you're on a monitor. Getting communication, getting information to the parents. Parents not coming into the schools now, you're trying to send information virtually to parents. It's very important that parents are still engaged, and sometimes teachers are struggling with the communication. Also, there may be some communication with the administration. And what I mean by that is normally teachers are able for the administration to come in, and they still can come into the room and listen to their assignment, but it's still just a little bit different with hands-on. So you may not have that hands-on, that person directly in the room with you, but you do have them on the Zoom call or Micro Teams call. But I still think it's a little different than face-to-face for teachers, especially brand new teachers. I think the colleges and universities are having to shift their curriculum, because now you have teachers that are coming out, first-year teachers, and their whole classroom is remote. And that is totally different than what a first-year teacher did 30 years ago. So now you're just fixing up your background on your camera. Years ago, you were fixing up bulletin boards, you were making sure that you had your name tag, you had all these things in place. But now the challenge is, how do you continue to engage your children the same way you did when they were actually sitting in front of you?
Very well said. Now, I know about you and how you started the schools, or you ran the schools, that they were considered or designated as, high achieving institution, distinguished schools by the state and the education department. So what was your secret? How did you achieve things such as that? Because I know you're a leader of the school, but you can't do everything by yourself. So what is your secret sauce that you can share with other administrators?
Well, okay. Well, in 2003, I opened an elementary school, Martin Luther King Elementary, in Clayton County Public Schools. At that time, I think I had about 1,175 students to enroll on the first day of school. When I arrived at this school, there were no chairs, desks, telephones, no paper. It was just a blank building. And so at that time, there were 4 schools that were already existing that was going to be the makeup. So they pulled a percentage of kids out of 4 different schools to make the makeup of Martin Luther King Elementary. So I always remember, I had a parent to say to me, so what is it going to look like for my child coming to your school day one, opposed to my child going to a school that has been in existence for maybe 10 to 15 years? And what I wanted to do was make the parents, to reassure the parents that the faculty was going to be the most part at that point in time. I had the privilege of hiring every staff, faculty and staff member in that school, from the teachers, the paraprofessional, administration, custodians, cafeteria workers. I think I had a rare type of situation during that period of time, because most time you would have a lot of transfers. But during the time that I took over that school, I had the opportunity for about 6 months to interview people, to get an understanding of their philosophy. And what I did first, I looked for people who were wanted to be very nurturing and had the heart for children. You can always look at qualifications. Qualifications are very important, but you also need to know how many people that will be coming to the village that will go beyond the call of duty to make sure that kids. So what I did with that was start developing small groups. I had focus groups. We had conversations of what education looks like, what an environment should look like. We were very keen on what does it look like when someone walks in the front door? Does it look like learning in a school? And then I brought in outside people who could tell me what it looked like when they arrived, because I needed to get information to see what it looks like. And then we started building teams. We started looking at teachers who were better for kindergarten and who were the best teachers for first grade and second grade and so forth. So we built a team, but it was a lot of communication. It was a lot of talking. And then also I had contact with other principals that were able to give me insight about the population of children that were coming into the school. And Abby, I did have a very different environment, in the sense of I had 25 male staff members when I first opened the school. So on every level, there was a male teacher, and then I had males in the cafeteria, I had males in the administration. So when parents would walk in the door, they would look around and say, oh my gosh, there's so many males, because normally at that time, you would not see that many males in the elementary school.
Right.
But one thing I will say about us, a very good presence of what leadership looks like and what we expected from our students and our community. And it really turned out really well for us. And that's what made us very different. And to finish answering the question about the parent that was so concerned about what it was going to look like, she came back to me a few years later, because in 5 years, we were acknowledged as the National Title I Distinguished School for the state of Georgia. They only select 2 schools a year. And we were one of those 2 schools. After 5 years, we were selected.
Congratulations. That is a great honor. I know people in America, this is really a high achievement for any principal. So congratulations for that, for you and your team, because that's wonderful. Now, one of the things that a lot of time people talk about in education, you know, we have testing, right? We have to test, and every year, you know, both because of what the outcome needs to be, and administration and school districts require us to have these benchmark. And then you hear about teachers complaining about all this testing. It takes so much of their time, and it actually perception of the parents and some teachers is that the whole time people are teaching to the test rather than developing the kids. What's your view on that, and how could this be something that if it needs readjustment, how could it be adjusted where the students can benefit the most rather than adults, you know, talking about who is right?
Right. And so there are pros and cons to testing, and it's no way to get away from data. You need that in order to drive instruction. I think sometimes that we're overwhelmed because in school districts today, we try everything that comes by, and we over test. So we try this test, and then we try this test. I think that if we could just stabilize and we could find one instrument to use, because you need something, but use that consistently for a few years and see what your outcome will be. Because as children matriculate through elementary, middle, and high, by the time they get to high school, in some places, not all, they may have passed so many different tests, standardized tests, and even different norm tests, that you really can't come to any conclusive of what has this child actually learned. So on the other side, I do feel the teachers. I do understand what the teachers are saying, because in the state of Georgia, they do look at your pass rate or how well your students have done, and that is a part of the evaluation. So teachers do have to make sure that they are meeting all of those goals or benchmarks that they need to meet in order to prepare the child for teaching. But I always used to tell my teachers that it's so important to think about who's sitting in front of you, which is the child. And how do you make learning fun for that child? And what do you really want the end result to be for that child? Because as we look K through 12, we want the children to be self-sufficient by the time they graduate. We want them to show independency. We want them to have the knowledge that they need to move forward, and whether it's college, being an entrepreneur, vocational, or whatever it may be. So our job is to prepare them to go out into the world. And so we have to take a step back sometime, and we need to breathe. We don't breathe enough in education. And what I mean by that, we're always uptight in education. But if you keep the children in the center of what you're teaching every day, I think every teacher in the world will be okay. You have to keep the kids in the center of what you're doing, because if you fall over, administration here, teachers here, community here, business here, you kind of get out of line. But if you keep that kid at the center of learning, I guarantee you're going to be able to give every kid what they need. If you just give them, if you say you are my top priority.
Well said. Well said. I totally agree with that, because no situation is really simple. It's not a simple answer for it, but because there are so many stakeholders.
Right.
But the best solution is if we can put the students at the center, the child in the center of these discussions, then as a group, as the stakeholders, we are able to come up with solutions that it would be suited best for the students.
Absolutely.
I have a question in regards to internship. and again, how do we transition the students from academic into the real life and the role of internship? And what do you think about that? How important it is, and then when should it start in a school? If that is a good solution or a good way to connect the students to their future.
Right. I think you should start as early as kindergarten, first grade. I think you should start there. In my school, we used to have this activity called Grammar Doctor. And what we did, we put all of our first graders in medical outfits, and we prepared an operating room for them. And we would have little drawings of little miniature people. And what they would have to do, they would use their adjectives, and they would place the I on the I. And at that point in time, not only are we teaching grammar, but we're teaching a occupation to the students. So you start talking about careers as soon as in kindergarten. Every year we would have a large career fair, and we would have different careers to come into the classroom starting from kindergarten through fifth grade. I think that's most important. Personally, I want to share in high school, I think is most important for internships. My daughter, which will be a senior next year, her internship will look like, because she wants to be an orthopedic surgeon. That's what she's telling me at this point in time. So she will have an internship with an ankle and foot doctor during the summer and next year, which will give her the opportunity to look at what does my future look like. I think that we need to make more of a transition towards internships, especially in high school for students. So they have a clear understanding. Financial literacy is very important. We need to do more financial literacy for our high school students as they are preparing to go off into the new world, what I call college or entrepreneurship, or whatever it may be that they're going to do. So I think that internship will give our students an advantage. I think it will prepare them to understand just the goals of what it takes to work in a career. And I think it starts in, I'm going to say the high schools, but as I stated to you, we start as early as kindergarten. And I think this is going to be very important. And you will see those kids that have internships, you do see a difference in those kids who've already been out having a taste of the working world before they actually go on to the next chapter of their life.
I totally agree with you. I can tell you from my personal experience that I've had, actually makes education more fun. Individual, it doesn't matter how early you start, when they start imagining themselves in different position, in different areas, they get more excited about what they're learning and the applications of what they're learning. And a lot of time, unfortunately, the courses that are being taught by wonderful educators, we leave out many times the application of those knowledge. When people are learning about biology, or they're learning about physics or chemistry or mathematics or social sciences, sometimes they think it's a chore. I have to do this because that's part of my requirement, rather than knowing how is it going to affect my life. And I totally agree with you that those are wonderful suggestions that I think it can make a better school and better environment for our students. So
absolutely. And I just want to add quickly, to that. I think that when the universities and public school, K through 12 and privates, when we all come together, because I do believe there should be a symposium where everyone is coming together. And when we're all on the same page and we talk more about, like you just mentioned, internships, and if we can get that across the board, I think when we talk about education for a better world, when we have more people from different sectors coming together, talking, then we're going to see those changes in a positive way. And they're out there. And I know it's going to happen. It's going to take people like you, take people like myself that continue to be advocates for education and how important education is for our youth.
Absolutely. I like you believe that education is the foundation for a better world, and at the same time is an equalizer. all over the world, people that have access to education. I see you and many successful people. And I can see the role of education, how not only has given you all this degree and acclamations, but it has made you a happier and more successful person. So
Exactly.
I, wish that for everybody on the planet. So uh, let me go on to the next subject, because a lot of times, we have a lot of professional development and shrinking budgets at the school, while everybody knows the importance of, you know, continue education, training, what we need to do to prepare our staff, our teachers, our supportive staff. Uh, and one of the areas that I've been thinking about, and I know in my own life has been very important, but is mentorship, right? And I want to see what is your opinion about this, and how would a school or a school district or a teacher
Right.
within even their own classroom can set up these concepts of mentorship. Is it valid? Is it important? And if it is, what are some of the things people can do to set up a system of mentorship that can help development of individuals?
Yeah, mentorship is very important in any school. It doesn't matter what level it may be. First group, I always looked at my brand new first year teachers. They need a mentor from day one. And it's a lot of times it's more of they just need someone to validate what they're doing, because they're coming right out of school and they just want to make sure that they're following the guidelines and doing what they're supposed to do. But I kind of want to take you to another area, because we have evaluations for teachers. Sometimes teachers may not perform just because of that moment. And it does not mean that they're not a great teacher. And I think if we do more of the mentorship, so in many schools that I've worked in, we have coaches now. And with these coaches, they go in and they're able to sit next to a teacher. There's no scoring, there's no evaluating. It's just to sit and to talk with the teacher, to have understanding what does your lesson plan look like for today. And most teachers today, they have a great understanding of what the framework is for teaching. But we have to help teachers sometimes with the engagement of their lessons. And that comes in when you talk about the fun part. I think mentorships, whether it is a coach, a literacy coach, a math coach, or academic coach, or whatever name you want to call it, I think that we must have these individuals in school to work with teachers. Over my career in 30 years, I have evaluated thousands of teachers in the classroom. And when I would go in the classroom, I always wanted to make them feel comfortable. As a principal, it's hard to make a teacher feel comfortable, because when you walk in, they feel. So a lot of times I would go in without anything, no notepad, no computer, in my lab. I would just go in. And a lot of times I would try to get into the lesson. And what I mean by get into the lesson, it was a kindergarten classroom and they were sitting in a circle. I would sit down and I would participate, because I wanted to ease the teacher. I wanted to make sure that the children were calm. And so when you have mentors who know how to go in and work with the teachers, show them, like, I'm not here to evaluate you. I'm just here to work with you to help you to be a better teacher. That's when you find results. You will see results with districts that really invest in coaching, helping the mentorship, because in today's society, what I will say, our younger teachers, they're very savvy with technology, which is excellent. But then we have veteran teachers who have a different approach and know how to say, this is some of the things that you need to do in order to engage, or these are some of the resources that would be great for you to use. And so on both ends, we're able to help each other, whether it is a veteran teacher or a brand new teacher. I think everybody has something to bring to the table, as long as the school and the school district recognize how important mentorship is.
Absolutely. And I can say that not only in education, I think mentorship can be expanded in all industries, all positions. I have all throughout my life had many mentors that are really responsible in many ways for many achievements that I've been able to reach, and then what I have then used that to share with my colleagues. And like you said, you should have both mentors, and you should actually take the time to share your knowledge and your experience with people that seek it, and you're able to impact. And I think in those both areas, people can help each other. Just as you mentioned, the tenor teacher versus some new teachers that are joining the team, they can learn from each other. And if we do that well, and we have a system that can accommodate and make that possible, then that's a good model to have for the student. Because when is it, like you were talking about internship, when is a good time to teach or incorporate internship? I think the same thing about mentorship. Older students can mentor younger students, and this can become a way that they learn to continue their journey, and I think help each other, in a sense, achieve higher goals.
Right, Abby, I want to add to that. There's something else I used to do. I used to have a buddy system.
Right.
So when teachers started out that first week of school, I assigned everybody a buddy. And so whether it was a new teacher, a veteran teacher, or two veteran teachers, you always had a go-to person, because a lot of times maybe you can't get to the literacy coach, or you can't get to the counselor, or whatever it may be. But if you have a buddy, that's very simple. And I think a buddy system in schools and in districts are very important, because you just need someone to be able to talk with about whatever the situation may be and concerning the educational issue or situation.
Well, one thing you heard me say, and I mentioned it, more of a reminder to myself, that life is short and happiness is everyone's right. So with that said, what are some of the things that I think we can do in order to be happy, is to pursue our career in something that we're passionate about? And I know you, and I have the pleasure of working with you. Dr. Matthew is on 24/7 classroom board, and I get the pleasure of working with her and see this firsthand myself. A very competent and passionate educator. So I want to ask you to share with our audience about opportunities in education. So if people are thinking about joining and changing their career or continuing their career in education, they should hear from somebody that is among the best, in the industry. So what message do you have for people that want to consider education as a career?
I think education is one of the top careers in the world, that gives an individual the opportunity to feel the intrinsic of feeling of giving back. And so I can't sit here and say, well, what about the money? The money is always important, but I spent some time at Harvard University, and there was a professor there at the time, and he told us, what you love to do, the money will come. And so what I tell everyone about, and I love when you talk about being happy, you have to find what you like. You have to find what you're in love with. A lot of times I feel like individual in life, we want to do what everybody else wants us to do, but we don't take the time to sit back and breathe and think about what is it that you like to do. So give you an example, sometimes like, hey, we want that kid to be a medical doctor, and we want this kid, but at the end of the day, this kid may want to be a writer or be an author or publish books or whatever it may be. So I would say education has been one of the most fulfilling careers in my life that I could have ever had. I have touched so many children, so many teachers, principals, administrators. In my lifetime, I think that all that I've tried to give, I gave. I did what I could do. And I feel very good about that. And if there's someone, when I see new teachers want to come into I just tell them, hey, be happy. It's a great job. You're working with kids. You are developing them for the nation, getting them ready for the careers. And I think that you have to love yourself. I do truly believe you have to love yourself in education in order to give to everyone what they need in education. And I have a very strong feeling about that, because I have to go back to the word nurturing. In education, we must nurture, we must show compassion. We have to say, yes, learning is important, but we care about you. And if you want to be the person, if you're that type of person that care about people, education is the place to be, because you can give so much help to students and individual, even adults. We've talked about kids today, but at the end of the day, there are a lot of adults that I feel like I did just as much for, as far as teachers and principals, as I did for children in the classroom. So I just say, Abby, just being happy, loving yourself, enjoying life, and looking up in the sky. Sometimes I ask people, when is the last time you looked up in the sky? Do you know what color it is? That's very important, to take a moment.
No, absolutely. Well said. And thank you. Thank you so much. It has been a delight and an honor to have you on this show. I am very thankful for you as a guest in this program and as a colleague that I have the pleasure of working with. Any last word for our audience before we conclude our session?
Well, the only thing I just want to add to say, now in education, we are in a area of technology. And I know there are some people that have reservations about moving forward in education and when it comes to technology. And it's not always about being in a classroom. I'm talking about in families, in their homes. My recommendation is just try it, one step at a time. You don't have to know all the programs. You don't have to know everything about the computer. Just get it in your home, get an iPad in your home, start with your telephone. Technology is important, and that's where we're moving forward. That's where education is going. So just take one step at a time and just try it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. You too.